Hello, today I will be guiding you through Waycrest Manor. Waycrest Manor is a tight run with ad percentage and with limited space to kite the ads, especially during Sanguine and Quaking Week. The rundown of the dungeon depends somewhat on which side door opens when the challenge begins. Optimal case is when the left door opens, since right door requires you to kill much more ads at start. Good classes to bring to Waycrest. 1. Classes that can dispel diseases. 2. Classes that can dispel curses. 3. Classes that can purge. 4. Paladins and Death Knights are always a good choice. 5. Shroud is a good option to have in case your first door is on the right. When you first begin the challenge, groups usually pull all the fiends since it is easy percentage, while the healer takes a peek at which side door is open. I will be explaining the left side first. Taking a turn into the left side, you will see a bluish orb with black boundaries floating. This orb summons a witch into the fray along with the patrol. The witch varies on ability. You will either get the one that will stun random targets, which can be interrupted or dispelled, or you will get the one that cleaves, which can be decursed, and drops candles on the floor. This candle reduces damage by 50%, and the witch must be kited out of the candles as soon as possible. Other key adds to note are guards and disciples. Guards will cleave periodically and must be faced away from the party. Disciples will attempt to silence, which can be decursed or interrupted, and apply 25% damage reduction to allies, which can be interrupted or purged, and also attempt to ascend. If this ascension is not stopped, it will heal to full and turn into another witch. All abilities of Disciple should be interrupted, but you may let the silence or the buff go off and decurse and purge to deal with this mechanic. Going into the first boss's room, we have the Acolyte and 4 toads in a pack on both sides. Now these mobs aren't necessary to kill, but since they are easy percentage and can be aggroed during the boss encounter, a lot of the groups often kill both packs. Toads will die relatively quickly, but they will drop a green swirl that will disorient anyone standing in it. Melee and tanks must watch for this. Acolyte casts a couple spells that can be interrupted, but their casts aren't too significant. However, interrupting them will prevent some moderate damage onto the tank. The Heartsbane Triad is a tough fight for healers and for DPS. DPS must find ways to maximize their DPS or suffer from heavy AoE damage. Healer must find ways to keep the party stable through the mechanics while not running out of mana. Out of the 3 bosses, only one boss will be activated. This activated boss is significantly larger than the other bosses and has an orb on top of its head. Non-activated bosses take 99% reduced damage. Boss should be pushed with strong single target DPS. Now depending on which boss is activated, players have to deal with different mechanics. Activated boss will deal increased damage and should be interrupted as best as possible. First boss will reduce healing by 50% for everyone. Healer at this stage should focus on keeping the party somewhat stable around 50% HP. The boss will transfer the orb at 50% HP. Boss will mind control a random DPS player. The mind control player must be DPS down past 60% to be broken out of it. Boss will take 99% less damage during this time, so DPS must swap to the mind control as soon as possible. Any CC skills such as blind, paralysis, and other instant cast CC skills must be used prior to this point to prevent mind control players CCing other party members. Second boss will apply a stacking debuff that will inflict damage over time on all players. This debuff can be reduced down when you move. Everyone should keep the stacks at 1 to 2 and never pass 3. At 3 stacks, DPS will be going down quite rapidly, and at 4 stacks, the damage becomes uncontrollable. Boss will also apply circles underneath everyone's feet. You can only see your own circle. Couple moments later, your circle will explode, damaging anyone standing in it. All players must spread out to reduce the damage onto the party. At this point, the DPS should attempt to push the boss before the second circles come around to save the healer's mana. Healers should be keeping their stacks low while attempting to keep everyone as healthy as possible. Personal defensives and or party-wide cooldowns such as Barrier, Rally, Devil Aura, etc. should be used at this point. Their boss will damage players that attack the boss. This damage is quite insignificant, and the healer should focus on topping everyone off at this point. The boss will target a random healer or DPS and inflict a large spike damage, followed by a dot that will not stop until they have been topped off. Since this is a bleed effect, Blessing of Protection, Divine Shield, or Ice Block can be used prior or after to stop this dot from killing the person. Healers should save externals for this phase. Since the orb transfers at 50% HP, the first boss will cycle back and hold the orb and the cycle begins again. Keep in mind that when boss gets to full energy at any point, it will cast an explosion doing lethal damage to the entire party. Assuming everyone is topped off before the cast, party members will take around 70%-ish damage depending on the level of the key. If your DPS is not as high and this cast is surely going off, healers should burn as much mana and everyone should use defensives to prevent the wipe. The hallway after the first boss has the disciple mentioned earlier, with the witch in the hallway that will appear from the orb. It has the guards that also cleave, and there is one additional add, the captain. The captain will periodically, about every 12 to 15 seconds, buff itself. The buff reduces its damage taken by 50%. You must either interrupt or purge this buff. Now if you were to begin the instance from the right side, you cannot enter the boss's room on the first floor. You need to go upstairs to get to the Triad boss. If you go upstairs, there will be ravens on the balcony area. The ravens will periodically cast Pallid Glare, which disorients a random party member. This must be interrupted as much as possible. Now there is a door in the hallway that can be taken to go downstairs, but this will not open until the first three bosses, Triad, Goliath, and Rawl, are all dead. When you head out the door that leads to the backyard, there are a bunch of hounds. These hounds don't do much, but you must be careful of pulling other witches or Dorn guards during bolstering week. Out in the backyard, witches have a different set of skills. They will cast diseases that burn for a large chunk of damage, which should be dispelled or interrupted. They will also apply an orb to themselves, which can also be interrupted. When the holder of this orb buff dies, it will provide a 5-stack buff to a nearby ally, empowering its damage and haste greatly. This empowered add can shred tanks and must be purged 5 times so that this buff is completely gone. They also cast Uproot, which can only be stopped by Incapacitate or Stuns. This Uproot knocks a random party member and anyone standing near them. Everyone should spread and watch themselves so they do not get knocked into other groups. They will also cast Effigy Reconstruction, which heals any Thorn guards or hounds around them to full. This can become an issue during bolstering week and must be interrupted. Now any of these adds that are on the courtyard will burn when they are stepping on fire. If the tank brings them on top of a fire, it will damage them at about 7k per second. The second boss of the instance, Soulbound Goliath, is very simple and straightforward. It will encase a random party member in a thorn that must be DPS down. Blessing of Protection, Divine Shield, or Ice Block can free the application of this thorn. Boss's damage increases over time and can be checked by looking at the stacking buff on the boss. Some tanks will start to feel that boss hurts around 20. In general, with a competent tank, they will feel the damage at around 30 stacks. Past 30 stacks, tanks will get pummeled and defensives and externals will not slow down the boss from pounding on the tank. This can be resolved by bringing the boss into fire to reset the stacks. However, fire will inflict party-wide damage and tank should only reset when he is in dire need. Keep in mind that fire disappears rather quickly, so tanks should always keep a watch on the newly spawned fire. Each stack that the fire burns on the boss will summon a red, translucent ghostly ad that cannot be targeted. This ad, assuming the healer is consistently healing, will aggro towards the healer. Healer must kite the ghost until they disappear away. Coming in from the right side of the entrance, we have couple survivalist and marksman. Now the marksman don't do anything special, but the survivalist does a series of traps and AoE dots. The AoE dots can be interrupted and puts a disease on every single party member. This must be stopped as much as possible. Now there are two kinds of traps, one with mines and one with frost. Now the frost trap will CC whoever steps on it for 10 seconds. The mines will damage anyone stepping on them. Both should be dodged at all costs. Now keep in mind that the hallway is often too narrow to dodge any traps. It is often recommended that these ads are brought into the main area to be DPS down. Moving down towards Pig Boss, you will see a bunch of maggots. There are two kinds of maggots, ones that are parasitic and ones that are just regular. Both maggots will spit and put a dot on a random party member. More than 3 applications of this dot will start to hurt on the party member. Some of these maggots are parasitic, and this can be noticed by looking at their debuff. Now these parasitic maggots will attempt to infest a random party member. If they successfully infest a party member, they will be multiplied in 2 when they reappear out of the party member. This infest cast must be interrupted as much as possible to prevent them from summoning more maggots. There are also other ads such as the Pallid Gorger, which jumps at a random party member and inflict a dot on them. There are also Steward that will cast an AoE silence around them, which can also be interrupted. There are also pigs and peasants that are infested and will summon 3 maggots after they die. Tanks should be on the watch for these ads and taunt the maggots when they appear. The pig boss requires moderate movement and add DPS. Keep in mind that the tank must stay in melee at all times. If no one is in melee, boss will AoE pulse to wipe the party. Boss then does a series of casts called Tenderize, which blasts anyone in front of the boss in a cone. It will cover about half the room and he will cast it 3 times. Keep in mind that the cone's radius is much larger than it seems. Boss summons 2 types of ads, waiters and slimes. 4 waiters will spawn at once, 1 from each door, and will attempt to slowly walk towards the boss. When they reach the boss will consume them, buffing himself by 5%. These waiters need to be DPS down before they reach the boss. Knockbacks, stuns, and CCs can be used to prevent them from reaching the boss. Slimes also spawn in 4. They will leave a slime puddle in each location that they were dropped. These puddles will slow down anyone stepping on them and do a moderate damage over time. Slime should take priority over other ads, especially during Necrotic Week. Going downstairs, you need to be at least 68% and you need to be 83% to head into the bottom floor. During teaming weeks, you need to be at least 71% for downstairs and 86% for bottom floor. If you started from the right wing, you should have more than enough percentage. This is when a rogue comes handy as you can shroud across to the basement. If you started from the left side, you may be struggling with the percentage. Make sure you have the percentage before going downstairs. Lord and Lady Waycrest is a surprisingly tank heavy fight. Lord Waycrest will bash on the tank periodically, forcing the healer to consistently heal the tank. Lord Waycrest will inflict disease on a random party member other than a tank. When inflicted, the party member will have a green circle around them. When this debuff is dispelled or expired, it will re-afflict anyone standing in the circle. If you are afflicted by this circle, you need to run out as melee. Be aware, since this debuff slows you down, Range should spread in advance so the debuff can be dispelled instantly without a problem. Also, when this debuff is dispelled, it leaves a green circle on the ground. Standing in this green circle also gives you a debuff, you should run out of it. Lady Waycrest will occasionally throw out series of swirls on the ground. They don't do high damage, but if your healer is low on mana, you should dodge to help the healer. After healing Lord Waycrest twice, Lady Waycrest will jump into the middle. The group as a whole should keep her interrupted while burning down Lord Waycrest first. After the boss, there are a couple shadowy adds leading to Gorak Tool. These adds do quite a significant amount of damage as they jump around. If you end up pulling all 7, you will most likely have a tough time killing them. My suggestion is to pull them in 2 separate packs. Last boss is quite simple as well. He will occasionally cast an interruptible spell. He will also summon an add into the fray. The add will channel a cast which stuns a random DPS. This add can be knockback, CC'd, or stunned to cancel this channel. During the encounter with this add, a potion will spawn in a random location. Player picking up on this potion will have an extra button to throw the potion and remove the add's corpse. If the add's corpse is not removed, boss will resurrect this add when he does an AoE spell onto the party. If you do not remove these corpses, adds will pile up and end up keeping everyone stunned. Well, that's it to Waycrest. Hope this guide was helpful. If you like this guide, please hit the subscribe button below and let me know via comments on which dungeon guide you'd like to hear next on. Thank you, and have a good day.